Okay, let's begin. I am Lanice Antoine Shelley, and I'll be your host through constructive, healing-based conversations designed to illuminate the adoptee, parents, and the adoption curious. We center the topics around community, mentorship, leadership, and healing, so you get a multi-dimensional view that is ultimately empowering. These are the voices who could not speak when they were young. Hey y'all, if you've seen me on Instagram, I'm in my summer glow phase and I am unapologetic about it. My hair is luscious. Fun fact, I didn't start properly treating and doing my own hair until I was a grown adult because like many Black adoptees, no one showed me how to do my own hair. And because I love you all so much, I'm going to share with you my hair secret. I'm always on the lookout for things you'd love and things that will enhance your well-being inside and out. We Unique Cosmetics sent me their Moisture Lock pomade and scalp and hair therapy oil from their Metamorphosis line, and it's so decadent, light, and nourishing, fam. This has become a hair routine staple. It has a soft lemongrass scent that people comment on when I walk by or when they're doing my hair because now I have boho locks. They also sent me a 15% discount link for you to try their products and hair tutorial service. And Unique Cosmetics is Black owned and operated by a mother and daughter duo dedicated to helping the adoptee community. Check out the link in the show notes. And this is for all ages, fam. So tell your friends. So come on, embark on a hair-loving journey with We Unique World. From interactive workshops to premium products, they're all about empowering you to embrace your unique hair journey. Because remember, all hair is good hair, especially when it's healthy. Hey there, fam. How's your heart? I'm a bit tired today because for the first time in my life, I've had major allergies that even kept me up last night. I know people who've had allergies their whole lives, and I'm experiencing them for the first time this year. Woof. It's no joke. Besides fatigue and itchiness of the eyes, I'm excited because my moms are coming to visit me tonight. They fly in from the West Coast, so I've been cleaning and preparing for a week now. If you want to meet my mom and my godmother, listen to episode 3, titled The Women Who Raised Me. Now, this week we have Kevin Hofmann here to talk about his experience as a biracial, cisgendered man, growing up in a white family. Kevin is a trainer, public speaker, and the author of the book, Growing Up Black and White. This was such an insightful and inspiring conversation that made me reflect on my own upbringing and how there was a time that I did not want to be the shape or hue that I was born into. This is very common with interracial adoptions. Please note that Kevin mentions the N-word, which is used as a term of endearment between two Black people. This podcast has a wonderfully diverse group of listeners, so I just wanted to prime you that in this context, it is meant to engender brotherhood and fellowship between two Black people, okay? As Kevin says in the convo, you can't have an interracial adoption and not talk about race. There are those who want to try, they want to forget, ignore, or bypass, but for those of us living in this skin day in and day out, we do not have the luxury of pretending. This is a vital conversation, fam. Let me get out of the way for it, okay? Let's lean in. How are you, Kevin?
I am good. How are you?
I'm very well. Very well. Let's get started.
Okay.
So, Kevin, you have been up to a lot. Mm-hmm. And I love your website. Can you share with us all the things that you're up to?
Sure. So, I started, I'm a biracial person. Mm-hmm. My mother was white, father was Black, and it's taken me 53 years to figure out the origins of this union between a Black woman or a white woman and Black man. It really created a passion in me, which is to try and figure out a way where we can reconcile the races that I'm made up of. And so that's what I spend most of my time doing, is talking to organizations, schools, trying to figure out how we can create this environment where the kid with the Black Lives Matter t-shirt and the kid with the Make America Great Again hat can coexist.
Yeah. So you're a speaker. You are a trainer as well.
Yep.
Do any of these things intersect at all? The training and the speaking and the writing?
Oh, yeah. So, I forgot. My wife would kill me. So, yes, I wrote a book called Growing Up Black and White, which started this whole thing. And it's my experience as a transracial adoptee, living. So I'm biracial, but living with a white family and adopted into a white family. And so that's where I kind of begin. And so, yes, I do a lot of training and speaking with the state of Ohio. I help train their foster care workers and adoption and adoptive families and foster families. And so, yeah, sometimes I get to speak, sometimes I get to train. It really depends on the day.
Okay, that's wonderful. And I want to know more about your book, Growing Up Black and White. And I really love that title because it's so packed.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how you got to that title and how you got to writing this book.
Yeah. So initially, I was so fortunate to have a 7th grade English teacher that saw something in me. And she did a great job of convincing me that I could be a writer. So I always wanted to be a writer. And I was thinking through college, what would I like to write about? And then it just hit me. This was before This Is Us and series like that. And so I thought, wow, what an interesting way to grow up. I identify as Black. So this Black child in a white family, also in a Black city. I grew up in Detroit. And so I thought, man, this would be a great experience, or just an unusual perspective. So that's initially why I wrote the book. But then having the opportunity to step away from the book, really, I wrote that book for one simple reason, and it was I simply just wanted to be heard. So I spent a lot of time when I wrote the book. I knew it had to be about race. You can't really talk about transracial adoption without talking about race. And so I thought, but I have to talk about race in a way that people won't put the book down. And so it was very purposeful how I wrote the book. And I also wanted to share experiences that I went through growing up in this unusual family, but then also experiences that I had as a Black child in this country. And so I spent a lot of time really working those stories so that, yeah, they were funny at times, sad at times, but then I would look back during the book and go, okay, at 8 years old, I remember that. And this is how I interpret that today as a Black man.
Yeah. And so growing up in white does that point to the neighborhood that you grew up in or your parental guidance?
Yes. So the title of the book, you had asked that. It was my wife's idea, and I liked it because it says, growing up in a white family, some of us in white communities, we lived initially in a Black community. Well, when I was 3 months old, I was adopted into a white family. They lived in a white community. At 11 months old, we woke up to a cross burning in our front yard. About 2 years later, my parents decided this community is going to change us before we change it. And we moved. We moved from Dearborn, Michigan, a suburb of Detroit, into Detroit. And so ever since I can remember, from age 3 to 18, I was constantly surrounded by kids that looked like me. And that was life-changing for me because my parents couldn't teach me Black culture. And I will tell you, at age 3, I had found my tribe. There was a sense of belonging and home that I felt in the Black community instantly. And I'm so thankful I had that. My parents couldn't teach me Black culture, but they could say, go out and play. And I would learn that through my friends and through my friends' families. And it was just a great way to grow up. So, yeah, I grew up in a white family, but we also grew up in a white country and white communities. And so that what it was speaking to is, yes, we do have, yes, white is the predominant, thing in America, but we do have other people's experiences. And that's what the Black part is. I wanted to show that we're still allowed to have our own experiences and voice that. And they're still valid, which often as a child of color, you don't get that.
And I love that you are saying that the Blackness isn't negated by the whiteness.
Right.
By all of the white influence, you still maintain who you are, whatever that is. And this idea of belonging, I felt that when I first encountered groups of Black people in the African dance community. Like, I never felt so just hugged and taken in before. And so what was that like for you, the sense of belonging, which is so deep and that resonates with me?
Yeah, I was so fortunate that, so we were in that white community, we moved to a Black community, and my best friend was this kid, Derek Herbert. He lived right across the street from us. Tall Black kid, about 5 or 6 years older than me. But when I came into that neighborhood, he put his arm around me and he said, which was so endearing to me as this child of color trying to figure out who I am. I distinctly remember him putting his arm around me and saying, "This is my little nigga. And no one touches him."
Oh.
And he was the Don or the leader of that group.
Okay.
So what Derek said was gospel. So when he said, "Hands off this little kid," man, that meant the world to me because it meant you belong. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to make a space here for you. And he was like my big brother. Spent more time with him than any of the other kids. And he became like this huge mentor to me. And I never had those feelings that I wanted to be white because I had such great, beautiful pictures of what Black could be. And so I strive to be like Derek and Mark and Fred and all those dudes in that first neighborhood that I remember.
No, that's huge that you never wanted to be white, because I think that the majority of adoptees who are interracial, grew up in white communities with white parents, had, whether it be a moment, a month, a year, of wanting to be other. And I know I felt it because all of my friends were white growing up until I hit middle school. And then I started to transition into hanging out with more Black people. But I know that my friends would tell me that, like, "Oh, your lips are so big." And, they would point out all of these things about me that made me feel like ugly and made me feel like I didn't want to be Black or be who I was. So that is huge. And how did that shape your adult life and psychology? I'm sure it helped a great deal.
Yeah, because I never had those thoughts. Like I said, vacillating back and forth between I want to be white, I want to be Black. I didn't have any of that. I mean, I wanted to be Black. There was no doubt. And I remember consciously thinking, especially in Detroit, because Detroit has this rich, horrible racial history. And so, growing up, there were Black communities and white communities, but very few, and to this day, there still are very few diverse communities. So I knew early on, although I was biracial, I am going to have to choose a side. I'm going to have to pick which group I belong to. And so I did it, one, because I was so in love with the group, with the Black group, and two, because I knew I would never pass for white. And so, I remember my biggest fear growing up was, will the community that I so love and want to be a part of, will they reject me? And so I spent so much time really just studying my Black friends because I wanted to make sure that I understood Black culture enough so that I could move in it. And my biggest fear was my friends were going to turn to me and say, "He's a fraud. He's not really Black."
Hey, I want to share with you something that has changed my life. It's more like someone. My therapist. Why is she so important? Well, because I want to win in this life. I want to break through the carousel of stories I've compiled that hold me back, that keep me from expanding into my full potentiality. Stories of unworthiness, not enoughness, and even stories of questioning why I am here. I also want to stop dumping my unsorted feelings on the people around me and reacting with the same behavioral patterns that keep me stuck. Conversations with my therapist have made me more confident, clearer in my intention, and more centered in my spirit. That is why I am elated that we are sponsored by BetterHelp, where you can, from wherever you happen to be right now, match with a therapist tailored to your exact needs. With BetterHelp, you can tap into a network of over 30,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of issues. Someone who you can text at any time and schedule online for either a chat, Zoom, or phone call. And if it turns out that your therapist isn't the right fit, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional cost. Visit the link in the show notes, betterhelp.com, when they were young, to get 10% off the first month. You need to click the link in the show notes in order to get the 10% discount. I want to see you win, beloved. Let's do it together. Visit the link, betterhelp.com, when they were young. Yeah. The imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
the adoptee. And that's a battle that a lot of people have to endure throughout their adult life. And if they don't have that early on conditioning of being okay, exactly who you are, and it's so detrimental as an adult.
Yeah.
So I was very lucky because the African dance community exposed me to the beauty of Blackness early on. And had I not encountered them, I would not be the person that I am today. I know that.
Yeah.
Certain, and it took my dancer moms and sisters to take me under their wing and be like, no one touch her.
Yeah.
She belongs to us. And you need that, right? And especially as an adoptee, hearing those words mean so much.
Yeah, exactly. And that was so important for me to hear that. Like I said, I struggled with, are these people going to say I'm a fraud? Will I fit in? And then, to have someone like that say, he's all right. He's cool.
Yeah.
And man, and never had those thoughts, like I said, of being white, and to the point where I felt bad for my white brothers and sisters because they weren't black. And I thought, man, you guys got the short end of the stick. But then as I grew up, I understood, okay, these scales are not even.
Yeah.
And they're actually weighted against people that look like me. But it didn't matter because I would never change the team that I was on. I never wanted to take off that uniform. I always wanted to be a part of that group, even knowing that we may be attacked, we may be singled out, and we may be treated differently. I understood the rules of the game and still wanted to play it the way I did.
So as a speaker, what are the major takeaways you like to impart on your audience?
It's interesting. I'm doing a big speech tomorrow, and the biggest thing is, it's so interestingly, I'll go into communities or organizations and we'll talk about, race. And the two biggest blowbacks I get are against the idea, which is actually fact-based, thought about institutional racism. I will also get pushback on white privilege. And I'm dealing with a group now, and I've gotten that, and I'm trying to figure out, so how do I say this in a way that's going to get those people to see it differently? And so what I'm toying with for this speech tomorrow is just like, and I use this all the time, is I just want to appeal to your compassion. And so when somebody's hurting, because what we get as people of color is, this thing happened to me and this is how I experienced it. And then you share that with someone because you're hurting. And then that person usually says, if they're white, they will say, no, 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 you got that wrong. That's not how it happened. You saw that wrong. No, you didn't see him shot. That video you saw of that guy dying on Facebook, you didn't really see that. You didn't see the half hour before that.
Yeah.
And that
You
is
didn't see
so
what he
frustrating.
did.
You're in pain for someone to try and dismiss what you're going through. And so my message for tomorrow is take a deep breath. The big speech that I give is called Give Me 3 Feet. And part of that is give people their own space to experience the world as they do. And that doesn't allow you to come into my 3 feet and interject your beliefs, because I don't need that. And if our beliefs aren't close, rarely are you going to convince me to come to your side. So let's not waste each other's times. Only if we are in a relationship and we both have something to lose, then we can have those deep conversations. But until then, give me my 3 feet to be who I am and quit coming into my 3 feet.
I love that. And that is so applicable to many topics and many people, right? Because I feel that human beings in general get into fight mode or get into shut down mode when people infringe upon that 3 feet radius of protection. And you don't know why people have put up those walls, why that 3 feet is imperative. And I know for me, it takes a minute to trust people, right? I have to soften to people to find another level of intimacy. But knowing and having that visual of the 3 feet is so helpful.
Yeah. Like, what if they gave George Floyd 3 feet or just 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Give him a minute to breathe.
Yeah.
I think that would have been life-changing, because everyone was so in it that they couldn't see. They couldn't see the compassion that was needed just to allow this guy to get a breath. And so, like you said, it applies to so much of just give someone a time to gather themselves. Give them the 3 feet just to understand what's going on. I love that opportunity to talk to police departments, because I'd have a whole lot to say.
Wow. What a powerful exchange too. And how receptive are they?
I don't know. I think there's an institution built.
Yes.
That, man, it's strong. Up until George Floyd, I'd never seen any other police officer denounce another police officer. That blue line is tough. But I think, man, take ego out of it and just understand, it's not that serious. Like, let's give the guy a couple minutes to gather himself. He's not going anywhere. And even if he does, we have his information. We could follow up with him later. Sometimes we're not going to win the fight, and that's okay.
Yeah. Did you see Trevor Noah's recent just musings on where are the good apples? And he's referring to the police officers that literally are witness to these atrocities and these murders. And someone mentioned another cop, a female cop, who actually tried to stop like a choking of some sort.
And she was fired.
Yep. And as you said, that blue line is strong, and the sense of solidarity. And you would think last summer, I was just so taken aback by how not all police people are bad, but it would have meant so much for police in general to come out to these protests in less military garb, in more of a peacekeeping manner and posture. It would have meant so much. Instead, it was like a militant denial and defiance of the harms done.
Yeah. Yes. And almost when you look at what happened on January 6th at the Capitol building, it was the reverse.
Yes.
So they were by far the more violent, in your face, and the police were taking pictures with them and not getting in their way. And then you had last summer and spring where, yeah, they were, for the majority, those were peaceful protests. But when you come at someone, and I kept thinking about that when I watched this footage of the George Floyd thing, is that if you come at me at a 10, we got nowhere to go. Yeah. So right away, they walked up to him and had their guns drawn. Where are we going? Like 10 is it. And if you show up at 10, and if the person you're coming at like that doesn't have enough in them to not match your intensity, that we saw it with George Floyd. It gets ugly quickly.
Yes.
And a lot of police officers aren't trained on what happens when it gets so bad. How do I get out of that? And I think an ego has so much to do with it that they want to save face as much as they can.
Oh, absolutely. And you see clips of UK police officers de-escalating situations. And not to say that their system is anywhere close to perfection by any means. They have their own, well, they are the blueprint of racism over there, but at least they have alternatives to violence. And I feel like a lot of the videos that we're seeing and the things that are happening unseen, undocumented, right?
Yes.
Just escalate, and they come at the person at a 10,
yes.
Because of racial profiling, because of prejudice and discrimination and all of that, and the systemic racism that they have been conditioned to support, to be honest. Yeah. Well.
Yeah. And it wasn't too long ago. I was riding my bike in the neighborhood, and there was a street closed sign, and I thought, man, I don't want to go around this. And quite honestly, I wasn't being smart. I thought, okay, this is for cars. I'm on a bike. I should be good. So I go through the street closed sign, and it's in a residential neighborhood. And I turn the corner, and there's a police car right there. So I knew enough not to leave. I stopped, and this young white officer gets out just screaming at me.
Wow.
And I'm so thankful that I took a breath and I went, okay. And then he kind of reloaded and he snapped out of it, and then he lowered his voice. And he took my license, whatever, came back clean, and he let me go. But I often wonder, what if I had met him with that? Wouldn't have ended very nicely.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
So where can people find you and learn more?
So you can find me under the name of the book, Growing Up Black in White.com, under my name, Kevin Hofmann, and Hofmann is HOFMANN. So kevinhoffman.com, and you'll see books. I sell t-shirts, and you'll see, examples of me speaking, the whole nine at that website.
Oh, awesome. And my final question that I ask every guest, where in your life do you think you can apply courage?
What I'm doing now. You talked about that imposter syndrome. There are times where I'm in front of a group of people and I'm thinking, man, I'm not qualified to speak to these people. Most of the people that are doing what I'm doing have gone to college and have master's degrees in diversity and inclusion. And I just have to tell myself that, no, you're here for a reason. There was a reason your mother didn't abort you when she had the money to do so. She had asked her sister for money to have my abortion, and her sister gave it to her. And we don't know why, because I never met my mother, but within that hour of leaving her sister's home to go get the abortion, she changed her mind. And so, I don't take that lightly. There's a reason why I'm here. And I think it really has to do with the fact that, man, we got to work this thing out in a way that it's never been worked out before. And that means coming to some reconciliation between the two races somehow, some way.
Yeah. Oh, great. This was all great stuff. Thank you so much, Kevin, for taking the time to talk to me and share all your wisdom. This will be a fun episode for people.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Another beautiful episode. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to my guest today. If you liked this episode, the best way to support me and this work is to write an iTunes review, a 5-star review. This helps us reach the top of searches and helps more people to find us. And if you personally want to connect, please reach out on Instagram or Facebook. And I have some great resource material on my website at laniceantoineshelley.com. So go on over there too. Until next we meet, go gently and have courage, my love.